Man shows mercy to others, but denies it to himself. This realization does not arrive gently. It arrives with a kind of inner collapse that forces you to look at yourself differently. And the moment this truth truly reaches you, it does not arrive softly. It feels like a cold wind passing through your chest. Because you realize something deeply unsettling. The one who should protect you the most is the same one who punishes you without mercy. Most people do not hesitate to show compassion to others. They forgive. They understand weakness. They soften their tone when someone else is in pain. But when it comes to themselves, that same compassion vanishes. The inner voice grows sharp, absolute, unforgiving. The moment you notice this, a silence falls. Not a comforting silence, but a heavy one. It feels less like an accusation and more like a confession you have quietly avoided for years. Why is it so easy to forgive others, yet so difficult to forgive yourself? Why can you say you're human, mistakes happen to someone else, but never to your own reflection? Why does your inner voice speak with such cruelty, as if mercy was something you must earn but can never quite deserve? Do not answer immediately. This question is not meant to be resolved quickly. It is a door, and once opened, it leads inward. Dostoyevsky understood that human beings are not only creatures who suffer, they are also architects of their own suffering. Much of their pain does not come from the outside world, but from what unfolds quietly within. His characters are wounded less by circumstances and more by the relentless inner court that never sleeps. Inside them, there is always a judge, a prosecutor, and an accused, sometimes all at once. And this inner trial rarely ends in acquittal. Why is man so merciless to himself? Because, in Dostoyevsky's view, every person stands before their own conscience. They defend themselves endlessly, but forgiveness rarely arrives. The crime is never clearly defined. It may be an action, a thought, a desire, or even a fleeting impulse. Sometimes, a person punishes themselves not for what they did, but for what they almost did, or what they were capable of doing. Here lies a disturbing truth. People often punish themselves not because they are unquestionably guilty, but because they know they are never fully innocent. Dostoyevsky's characters are painfully aware of the darkness within them. This awareness does not comfort them. It weighs on them. Once a person sees their own shadow clearly, compassion toward the self becomes difficult. Forgiveness begins to feel like a lie. Society teaches us to be good, to be strong, to be right. But Dostoyevsky shows how even the desire to be good can turn into arrogance. People cling to the image of themselves as good. And when that image cracks, forgiving oneself feels unbearable. To forgive is to admit imperfection. And imperfection feels like loss of control. In Dostoyevsky's world, cruelty toward oneself is inseparable from freedom. Freedom demands choice. Choice demands responsibility. And responsibility is heavier than most people expect. A person often punishes themselves not for the action they took, but for the unbearable knowledge that they could have chosen differently. Perhaps you recognize this pattern. Perhaps you replay past moments endlessly, even when no one is blaming you anymore. Dostoyevsky wrote that man's harshest executioner is never the world, never other people, but himself. This executioner waits patiently for moments of weakness, ready to resurrect every misstep, every hesitation, every regret. But why do humans cling to pain even when escape is possible? Because pain creates meaning. Pain proves existence. It gives life weight. To show oneself mercy threatens this fragile structure. Mercy feels like lightness, but also like emptiness. Letting go of pain can feel like letting go of the proof that one's life, one's suffering, truly mattered. This is why Dostoyevsky's characters rarely abandon their suffering. Pain becomes both punishment and affirmation. It says, "I suffer, therefore I am." And although this logic feels familiar, it is deeply disturbing. Pain, in this sense, is never accidental. It is carefully preserved, protected, and even cultivated. People return to it the way one returns to a familiar room, uncomfortable, yet known. In Dostoyevsky's world, suffering is not merely endured, it is guarded. Characters hesitate to let go of it because pain has become their moral compass. It tells them where they stand. It reassures them that their life has weight, consequence, and depth. Without pain, they fear becoming shallow, insignificant, or morally careless. And so, suffering becomes proof, not only that they exist, but that they exist seriously. To suffer is to believe that one's inner life matters. This is why relief feels suspicious. Happiness feels unearned. Peace feels like betrayal. When pain fades, anxiety rushes in to replace it, whispering that something essential has been lost. Pain once gave direction. It justified exhaustion. It allowed identity to form around endurance. To suffer was to mean something. To endure was to possess integrity. And in this way, pain transforms into structure. It organizes memory. It orders emotion. It assigns importance to mistakes long past. People begin to measure their worth by how deeply they have suffered, how long they have carried their burdens, how relentlessly they have punished themselves. In Dostoyevsky's characters, suffering becomes almost sacred. To abandon it would feel like abandoning truth itself. They suspect that mercy would dissolve the seriousness with which they approach life. They fear becoming careless, morally lazy, or disconnected from responsibility. Pain keeps them vigilant. It keeps them awake. It keeps them from drifting into moral ambiguity. And yet, this vigilance comes at a cost. The longer pain is clung to, the more it hardens into identity. Suffering stops being something a person experiences and becomes something they are. The self shrinks around it. Every memory is filtered through guilt. Every choice is weighed against imagined alternatives. Every moment becomes a quiet rehearsal of past failures. This is how pain maintains its power. It convinces the mind that without it, chaos will follow. That without punishment, one will lose discipline. That without self-cruelty, one will become morally hollow. Dostoyevsky exposes this illusion mercilessly. He shows that suffering does not always purify. Often, it merely repeats itself. It circles the same thoughts, the same regrets, the same self-accusations, producing intensity without transformation. Pain becomes noise, loud, consuming, but ultimately stagnant. And still, people resist letting go. Because releasing pain demands a frightening honesty, the admission that suffering has not made one better, only familiar. That it has not granted clarity, only routine. To step away from pain is to face life without the script of guilt, without the structure of constant judgment. It is to accept that meaning might not be found through endurance alone. And this terrifies the human spirit. Meaning without suffering feels unstable. Identity without pain feels undefined. So people choose the known weight over the unknown lightness. They prefer the certainty of self-punishment to the ambiguity of mercy. And thus, the cycle sustains itself. Pain is renewed daily, rehearsed quietly, defended fiercely. Because as long as pain remains, one does not have to ask the most frightening question of all. If I am not defined by my suffering, then who am I? To show oneself mercy is not comforting, it is destabilizing. Pain once provided borders, identity, and order. Mercy removes that structure and leaves a person exposed, directionless, uncertain. And uncertainty is more frightening to most people than pain itself. Mercy is not weakness. It is responsibility. To forgive oneself removes excuses. There is no punishment left to hide behind. Only life remains, unfinished, imperfect, vulnerable. This acceptance is quiet, not heroic. But it is the most honest relationship a person can have with themselves. People feel strong when they forgive others. But when forgiving themselves, they feel naked. The masks fall. The familiar balance of guilt and control collapses. This is why Dostoyevsky's characters cling to self-punishment. They fear clarity more than pain. Because clarity dissolves the identity built around suffering. And here lies the deepest cruelty, refusing mercy because one cannot endure the questions it brings. Without guilt, who are you? Without punishment, what remains? To forgive oneself is to step into uncertainty, to exist without armor, to live honestly. The human mind does not punish itself only for visible mistakes. Often, the punishment begins before any action occurs. Thoughts become crimes. Desires become evidence. The mind turns into its own prosecutor, jury, and executioner. The standards become impossible to satisfy. Every deviation, no matter how small, is magnified. This cruelty maintains a strange sense of order. Suffering becomes control. Judgment becomes stability. And yet, the resistance to mercy reveals something else. Deep down, humans long for release. But release threatens identity. To forgive oneself is to face incompleteness without structure, to accept ambiguity, to live without the certainty that guilt once provided. Dostoyevsky's characters remain merciless because suffering has become their anchor. Letting go of it feels like falling into a void of responsibility and freedom more terrifying than pain itself. And yet, only by enduring that void does something like truth begin to appear. If this resonates, do not judge yourself too quickly. Harshness is not always cruelty. Often, it is survival. People punish themselves believing it gives them control, while it quietly erodes them. Dostoyevsky understood that transformation does not begin when cruelty ends, but when one understands why it exists. So ask yourself, not to answer now, but to carry with you. Why do you press so hard against yourself? What are you afraid of losing if you forgive yourself? Dostoyevsky never gave answers. He left questions instead. And perhaps the final one is this: if mercy toward yourself is not weakness, but the most difficult confrontation of all, do you really need to remain so merciless? Do not answer yet. Some questions reveal their truth only in prolonged silence.